What kind of mind do you have? Have you ever made a decision that you regretted? Ever procrastinated on an effortful and demanding task? Ever binge-watched an entire TV series only to feel like shit later? Consider the last time you were angry or upset with someone's behavior, perhaps even your own. One question would have definitely popped up. Why? Why did he or she do that? Or perhaps you regretted a past action of your own, wondering, why did I do this thing? The reason I'm asking these questions is to shine some light upon the conflicting forces that are at work in your mind. Most people erroneously believe that when they make decisions, they are making those decisions rationally, taking all the factors into consideration. Before 1970s, social scientists broadly accepted this notion that people are generally rational and their thinking is normally sound. But after decades of new research, there is significantly more clarity about the workings of our mind. What psychologists have discovered is that most of our choices and decisions are intuitive and based on gut feeling rather than logic. The problem, of course, is that our intuition can often be biased without our being aware of it. This is the reason that we often find ourselves in conflict with our own choices. Our mind is not wired to understand and work with the truth, and it is therefore difficult for it to effortlessly discriminate between what is true and what feels true. What you're going to find out in this episode is that most of what we think and do is usually automatic and not even in our awareness. And the processes that are in fact in our control are at least mildly uncomfortable and requires deliberate effort. I believe that understanding our mind in this way can help us be more aware of ourselves. In order to introduce you to your own mind, let me begin by first introducing you to two characters. One is System 1 and the other is System 2. These characters are not associated to any physical regions in the brain. What they represent are two distinct processing speeds of your mind. System 1 is your gut feeling. It is fast, intuitive, and automatic. System 2 is slow, orderly, and deliberate. Let me show you how they work so you can get a taste of what I'm talking about. To introduce your System 1 to you, I will play a random sound and ask you a question after that. You're supposed to choose one response as quickly as you can, just whatever comes to your head first. I suggest that you pause this episode and go wear earphones or headphones if you're not already. That being said, let me play the sound. Okay, now choose one. Peacock or lion? So what did you choose? If you chose peacock, it is not by accident. This is a classic System 1 response. Somehow, you felt like going for peacock. Try this example with anyone around you, and under normal conditions, it is very likely that they are going to choose the same thing. But whether you believe it or not, your gut feeling was influenced by that sound of rain that was played before. Otherwise, how do you explain everyone having the same gut feeling? Just to make sure, I tried this example with several of my friends. Everyone, without exception, chose peacock. What happened here was, as soon as you heard the sound of rain, every idea associated with rain was activated, and so was peacock. Afterwards, when you were offered a choice between peacock and lion, it was much easier for your mind to retrieve peacock than lion. This is your System 1 in action. Like I mentioned earlier, System 1 is fast and intuitive. In fact, most of what we do and think is System 1 activity. Here's a short list of examples of System 1 processing. Identifying whether something is far or near. Recognizing threats. Feeling attracted to someone at first meeting. Craving for an ice cream. Driving a car on an empty road, if you know how to drive. Talking informally with your friends. Recognizing an angry face. Responding to your name. Identifying familiar things. knowing what 2 plus 2 is, scrolling through your Instagram, binge watching a TV series, chewing food, laughing, crying, walking, etc. Notice that all these activities are automatic and sort of happen by themselves. We don't plan them, and we can do them even with a distracted mind. You may think that driving a car on an empty road or chewing your food are not automatic, but next time you find yourself at the dinner table, try putting your attention on chewing your food. Do it slowly, with intention. You will find yourself constantly wanting to slip back into the automatic mode. Listening to this episode at this very moment is also a result of a System 1 choice. It is very likely that you did not plan it. You just somehow find yourself listening to these words at this hour of the day. The thing is that most of the work of System 1 is silent, hidden from our conscious selves. We know far less about ourselves than we feel that we do. Now, before I introduce your System 2, I want to warn you that unlike the easygoing System 1, System 2 processes are not fun to engage in. But I nevertheless urge you to fully participate in this problem that I am about to give you to experience your System 2 in action. Okay, so here's the problem. Solve this in your head before the countdown runs out. 16 times 22 is... Go. 10, 9, 6, 7, 3, 2, 1. Stop. Clearly, something different happened here. This time, unlike Peacock, an answer did not come to mind instantly, and you had to slow down and follow certain rules of arithmetic to arrive at the answer. Many of you probably gave up after a while, but even if you tried for a second, I hope you noticed some tension bubbling up. Using your intuitive System 1, you could tell that the answer is not a million, but you had to slow down and manipulate your attention in a certain way to arrive at the precise answer, which, by the way, is 352. This is your System 2 at work. System 2 is slow, deliberate, and feels a bit uncomfortable. System 2 operations cause a certain amount of strain. If someone was observing you closely while you were calculating the answer, they would have found that your pupils dilated while you were working out the product and your heart rate elevated. An important feature of System 2 is that it requires a deliberate orientation of attention, which feels uncomfortable and tiring. Other examples where we engage System 2 include focusing on the voice of a particular person in a noisy room, looking for a woman with white hair, maintaining a faster walking speed than is natural for you, monitoring the appropriateness of your behavior in a social situation, counting the occurrences of a letter in a page of text, looking for the right move in a chess match, parking in a narrow space, checking the validity of a logical argument, learning to play a musical instrument, trying to memorize someone's phone number, giving a public speech, lying to someone, washing your hands for 20 seconds, and any activity which requires self-control or concentration. In all these situations, you must pay attention, and you will perform less well or not at all if you are not ready or if your attention is directed inappropriately. It is the mark of System 2 activities that they interfere with each other, which is why it is difficult, if not impossible, to conduct several at once. The next time you find yourself walking with a friend, give him or her a multiplication problem, and it is very likely that he or she is going to slow down or even entirely stop walking while they calculate the product. This is the reason why other people in the car stop talking when the driver is taking a difficult turn. And also the reason why, if you actually calculated the product, you would not notice that my count to 10 was not fair. The capacity to pay attention has a clear limit. Now the problem with System 2 is that it believes that it is in charge and that it knows the reason for its choices. But usually System 1 is the real hero of the show. System 1, for instance, is automatically processing these words for you and creating meaningful inferences. All is flowing smoothly. But if I ask you to count the number of breaks in between the sounds I utter, you would need to rely on your System 2, and it would obviously be a rather tedious task. American psychologist Robert Zajonc argued that these two systems evolved to respond to two distinct situations. One in response to survival threats and the other in the times of safety. The vigilant, attentive, and problem-solving system 2 was needed in unfamiliar situations and in the presence of survival threats. The intuitive, automatic, and creative system 1 was active in the times of familiarity and safety. This could also explain why it is not effective to trust your gut feeling when you are facing a completely new situation, like the corona pandemic, and also why it is so difficult to be vigilant, attentive, and logical when everything is familiar and safe. In a famous psychology experiment conducted by Walter Mischel in 1972, many 4-year-olds were offered a choice. They could get 1 cookie right now or 2 cookies 15 minutes later. Some waited and some gave up. But something interesting happened after the experiment. 15 years after the experiment, a large gap opened up between those who resisted temptation and those who did not. The kids who waited 15 minutes to get 2 cookies were now, 15 years later, more mentally agile. They were less impulsive and less likely to take drugs. They also had substantially higher scores on tests of intelligence. In short, they had a strong system 2. The ones who gave up were more emotionally unstable, more impulsive, and had a higher reliance on their gut feeling. In short, they were more like their system 1. You've probably met many people like these. The intuitive, creative, yet impulsive ones who are prone to taking nonsensical decisions. And the controlling, the focused, and the logical ones who are usually very competitive and take decisions with extra care. Now, of course, both these aspects are in all of us, but everyone has a unique mix of inclinations toward these two systems. Generally speaking, system 2 is lazy, and people usually have a weak system 2. This is why people tend to procrastinate so much. Other instances when people have a weak system 2 is when they are drunk, self-conscious, sad, sleepless, and fatigued. This is why people tend to take stupid decisions and act impulsively in these situations. When system 2 is weak, system 1 takes over, and it doesn't know how to stop itself. System 1 is usually our default mode for making decisions. To give you an example, look at this image. Which line do you think is bigger? Clearly the one below, right? Okay, now look at this image. Which man is the tallest? Clearly the first man is unusually tall, right? Now look at this image. Clearly A is darker than B, right? Well, not really. In all these examples, all objects are perfectly identical. Go check them again. You will discover that you have to slow down and do some effort, measure their sizes, compare their colors, and rely on system 2 to conclude that. Your quick gut feeling response from system 1 is not going to work. The thing is that system 1 is often biased and can be wrong without us noticing it. What it means is that you would literally feel like something is true and it would still be false. These choices are harmless when it comes to puzzles, but can be life-altering when it comes to decisions about your career and choosing the right person to live with. You have now been introduced to your own mind, and just like you know how your heart, lungs, and stomach functions, I believe it is quite useful to understand the mechanism of your own mind, because that is where your decisions come from. My hope is that this understanding can at least help you be less harsh in judging yourselves and others. In future episodes, I will also talk about the biases and errors of judgment that your system 1 is susceptible to and how you can strengthen your system 2. So, see you next time. If you like the content of these episodes, please hit the like button, download, share, and follow the podcast. To watch a subtitled version of this episode and to share your thoughts, visit me on Instagram at profundus.n. I really appreciate you listening to Profundus. This is Rajat signing off.